Everyone, welcome to another episode of the Industry Show. Joining me today is the well-known author, entrepreneur, and motivational speaker Rahul Kapoor Jain. Thanks, Rahul, for joining us.
Thanks, Nitin, for calling me over. It's
Yeah.
amazing to be here in Los Angeles.
Yeah, you got here less than 16 hours ago, and here you are. So thank you, really appreciate it.
Welcome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. You have an amazing story, and you're an inspiring entrepreneur. So I really want to not only listen but also want to share the story with our folks. So tell us about you. Where were you born? Where did you go to school? And just growing up, your parents and.
Yeah, so basically I come from a small village called Novi, which is in Sumerpur, Pali district from Rajasthan.
Okay.
A town which only has about less than 1,000 people.
No way.
So yeah, I come from a small town like that. But our family shifted into Bangalore in 1942.
Okay.
Grandfather was a good industrialist who lost all his money due to some bad decisions, and by the virtue of which, when I took birth, we had some terrible financial constraints, so much so that Dad had to even borrow money to get me out of the hospital, me and my mom. So yeah, that's really how humbling it was as it kind of got started. Dad was trying to meet ends. My other siblings could not complete their high school even, but then all the focus was on me. They wanted to ensure that I try and make up for everybody else's education in some sense. So yeah, I mean, I was really focused, was trying to do everything I could to make Dad and Mom proud, studying and doing very well in school. I was the school president.
Wow. So you're a true success story in all respects.
Just about till then, but after that, of course, things changed quite a bit for the bad or for the good. But yeah, some amazing experiences thereafter as well in life.
So what did you want to become growing up? Like we all have, I guess, passions. Or I wanted to be a pilot.
I wanted to be an engineer. And why an engineer?
Oh,
because when I was in a train in India, you have an engine in the front.
Yeah.
And I thought that whoever was operating that engine becomes the engineer. So I wanted to be an engineer. Logical, yes, or illogical, I'm not sure. But when I was 13, that's really when I first went for a public speaking course. And I realized that I have something special when it comes to speaking. And I was interacting with a lot of great speakers and spiritual gurus. And I think I got my first insight about making a career as a public speaker at about 13 years of age.
Okay. So you were attending a session to just kind of understand how speaking and language and the importance of it.
Yeah, I mean, I was basically exploring different kind of short-term courses in summer, and I happened to be the youngest kid at that point in time in that course, and I was thrown out at the end of 3 days because I was not serious. And then, so when he threw me out, I just went and stood by the door, and I said, you can't throw me out of this place at least. I can stand here and listen to you. So that was a lot of arrogance. But I stood by all the way through for 10 days, right outside the door. And then I requested my teacher to see if he could get me in to at least deliver the last speech. And I spoke. I still remember the topic was the impact of Western influence on Indian youth. And I spoke for about 4 minutes or so, and I realized that there were tears in my teacher's eyes, and that's really when he predicted that. 1989, May 5th, if I remember,
Wow.
He said, you will become a public speaker. And well, his prediction seems to have come true.
Wow, that's amazing. So you travel a lot for your work and
Yeah.
in your business. What's your favorite city?
I love 3 cities. One, I love Bangalore because I come from that city. I do a lot of work in the Middle East, and I like Abu Dhabi.
Okay.
And then here in the US, I like Chicago. The reason I like the other 2 cities, that's Abu Dhabi and Chicago, is because they're very classy cities, very beautifully designed, modern, and when you are in these cities, you really can be at peace.
Yeah.
You don't have the traffic jams, and you don't have the honking.
The contrast from Bangalore.
Exactly the opposite. But yeah, I think that's how life works in contrast.
Yes. So what's the weirdest or the crazy thing you carry with you when you travel around?
I wouldn't say weird or crazy, but I always carry my presence of mind. I don't think I can live without that.
You're cheating, but I'll let you do that. What was your favorite character growing up?
I liked, I mean, we used to watch He-Man and Superman, but Hanuman.
Oh yeah.
Hanuman.
Yeah.
He inspired me the most because he could do everything that the others would do,
Yes.
but yet he had the human element of surrender and
Being down to earth.
being down to earth. He had amazing miraculous powers, but he always considered somebody else as his inspiration, which doesn't really happen with the other Western characters you really see. So
That comes
Hanuman.
from the culture, I guess. And I never got to see that movie, but I should. Like, I've only seen whatever I've seen is, probably when you saw from Doordarshan and what else there back then. But yeah, I need to catch up on that animation movie.
I'm sure he's going to inspire you again.
Yeah.
Hanuman is a legendary character. He's going to live for years to come, I'm sure.
Yeah, and the kids here now have seen it, and my kids have seen it, and it's an amazing story.
It really is.
So what describes Rahul? You're so many different things.
Yes.
Right? What defines you in one sentence?
A lot of people like calling me an entrepreneur, which I am by the virtue of the fact that I run 3 different companies, couple of charitable trusts. But I think over the last 19 years of my work, a lot of people have come back and told me that I play a role of a catalyst in their life. We all have different journeys through a lifetime, and I think you need someone who can kind of help you to see your inner potential. And I think that really has made me, or should I say forced me, to relook at myself as a life catalyst now. Of course I write, so author by that virtue. But really, I mean, if you were to ask me to define myself, I would say that I'm a life catalyst who helps people to get happier and to be successful.
So talking about a catalyst and inspiration and motivation, what made that change in your life? I mean, you, in sort of ways, you kind of lost the way, so to speak, when you were a teenager. So what was that journey like, and what was that trigger point for you to kind of get back into the flow of things?
Yeah, I'm glad that you picked that up, because I always felt that through the first few years of my life I've been very, very successful. Until my 10th standard, I was almost living like a dream life of a kid in school, doing extremely well. But when I went to college, college in India is 11th standard. That's really when I picked up wrong friends, and I got into some amazing habits. Should I say crazy habits, like smoking and drinking and bunking and partying. And even before I really got to understand what I was doing, I was writing my 12th standard examination and I failed. I was supposed to come to the US at that point in time for my further education. Remember, don't forget I told you about my dad having all his hope on me, and I was the only kid who was doing well, and then I flunked. Then when that happened, Dad and Mom both cried. I can distinctly remember that night, 2 a.m. There was noise from my parents' room. I knew something was going on, and when I kind of got closer to the door, I realized that Dad was in tears, Dad was crying, Mom was crying, and I realized what I did was wrong. But it's very difficult to come out of bad habits. But I guess I was pretty determined to ensure that there wouldn't be any more tears. And I think that's really when I kind of got started. I gave up all the bad habits. It was like an overnight turnaround. Just instant. I mean, you don't plan such things. I mean, I didn't plan to go wrong. Right. Why did I have to plan to go right again? So it was just about getting straight on. And the next day morning, I woke up as a different human being. But incidentally, Dad decided not to speak to me until I passed my exams. That was like a huge emotional downturn for me. I'm like, the man who loves me the most is not talking to me. So I spoke to Dad, and I promised him that I will bounce back. 6 months I bounced back. I was back in college. Interestingly, when we were looking around for a seat in a college, nobody gave me a seat. 11 colleges rejected me until Dad really pleaded someone and said, give my son a second chance, and I got that second chance. That, when he was pleading, that particular moment, I mean, I had decided that I will not have a single moment of my life where I'm going to make my dad or mom feel bad about me. And that's it. I picked up, back to college, did pretty well, ended up as the best student, and I almost thought I never did, but then that's really when Dad got cancer in my final examination. He was operated for esophagus cancer. His food pipe and stomach were cut off, and he was in the hospital. And that's really, I think, the turning point of my life, if you really ask me. Dad was in the hospital asking me every single day when my exams are going to start, and I told him 10 days, 5, 3, 2, 1, exams started, exams got over, and a few days after that, Dad passed away. But when he passed away, I went back to the doctor. I wanted to hit him. And he said, why don't you speak to your sister once? And my cousin's sister is a doctor, and I spoke to her, and she said, look, Rahul, Dad would have died many days ago, but he wanted to keep himself alive so that you don't fail in your exams again. When I got to know that, that was a turning point. I said, okay, fine, let me now dedicate the rest of my life to make Dad proud. And I started my career. I was studying in the morning, and I was teaching people in the evening to communicate better. Why? Because when Dad was dying, he couldn't talk to Mom, he couldn't talk to me. And that's when I realized that communication is so important in life. And I dedicated my entire life to help people communicate better. That was a long answer.
That's an amazing answer, though. And so that's really where, that's one of the questions I ask people when entrepreneurship is not easy.
Yeah.
Right? And especially helping others is not even worse, because you not only have to deal with your own challenges and struggles, but you have to go through and understand what's going on with them, and then help them through it. So I always try to understand where is their inspiration coming from, and I can completely see where yours is coming from. And it's a strong, powerful force.
True. I think it's about the purpose. A lot of people get into entrepreneurship because they want to make money, and I always tell people money is a byproduct. If you're going to be focusing on money, I don't think you're going to go a long distance. If your purpose is clear, if your value systems are clear, if you really know what you want to deliver, and then everything else follows after that, I think you're going to succeed as an entrepreneur.
So you had other challenges. I remember reading as I was researching you that you weren't the best, I guess, communicator, or your language wasn't really strong.
Yeah.
And then you also happened to be writing for the biggest English daily. So what was going on there? What's the mystery?
It's interesting, actually. I remember my English was poor because I didn't go to one of the best schools in India when I was doing my middle school. And once it so happened that a group of people, should I call them acquaintances or friends, insulted me, saying that when you speak in English, you make us laugh and cry both together, so why don't you shut up? And I went back home and I cried that night. And I kept cursing and complaining for days together of why is my state like that. But I think the change came in when I complained shifted into commitment. And I just picked up a book and I said, okay, I'm going to read this English book. And in 7 days, I was done with that book. That year, I read 52 books. 3 years, 156 books. My knowledge improved, my English improved. And 3 years after that, Times of India asked me if I could write an article for them, which I wrote. And that got also published in the Economic Times. And little did I know that they will then come and ask me to become a columnist with them, which I did go on to become for 8 years, wrote 175 articles.
Wow.
And eventually they requested if they could have compile my articles in the form of a book, which is called the Knowledge Series of the Times of India. And the book came back. Interestingly, I went back to the guy and gifted him that book, and it's right over here, the work-wise Lessons in Excellence for Young Professionals. So I gifted him back, and I said, thank you very much for the insult, because had you not insulted me, I would not have become an English author.
Right? And feedback, that's what I say is, feedback is what you make of it.
Yeah.
Right? Whether it's an insult or whether it's someone saying, you're doing this good, but you can make it better.
Yeah.
I think it's up to us to take that and turn it around and, deliver on results.
True. So in some sense feedback, in some sense feed forward as well. I knew what was wrong, but I then understood how to make that wrong right. And I think that's really the turning point, the commitment and the discipline and the focus to just keep your energy going on one place to overcome that challenge. The neurons fire up any which way, and then they get you where you want to go.
You make it sound so easy. So what led to what? You started writing, you started doing corporate training.
Yeah.
But you also you run a gaming company, you do event management, you have a few charitable trusts.
Yeah.
So take us through that journey in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, so I started my first company when I was a student. I was doing my post-graduation, so I was studying in the morning, running this company in the evening. Did a great job. In about a year's time, I trained about 1,800 people. And that's when the Times of India came to me and said, can we feature you as the rising sun? The rising sun in India. What did that mean? I had little knowledge of that. But when that article got published, I was suddenly a celebrity attorney too. Everybody was talking about me. The Manipal Hospital called me, and then they gave me my first assignment, the first corporate assignment, if I can say so, to train doctors. I was 22, training doctors. And it was passionate, so I was all over the place doing great job, but I never used a microphone that point in time, and I lost my voice. I had no voice for months together. I had to go for therapy. I had to build my voice back again, and that is the time when I asked myself, what happens if I lose my voice again? And then I started to launch one company every 3 years. So the event management company came out, and then 3 years after that, and gaming company. 3 years after that, I got a chance to work with Dr. Abdul Kalam. I launched Ignite India Initiative, a charitable trust to train and inspire youth in the country. 3 years after that, I'm a Jain, so I wanted to contribute to the Jain community. So I created Jain Youth Leadership Forum to reinstill the Jain values among youth. So that's really how my journey's been. It's all about doing something new every 1,000 days of my life, and I continue to do so even now.
That's an amazing way to look at it. Yeah, I didn't even connect the 1,000-day milestone. So you've done work with a lot of the, I guess, celebrities, you could call them, right? Sachin Tendulkar, Shah Rukh Khan, Dhoni, and like you said, Dr. Abdul Kalam. So tell us a bit more about that, and you know, what was that engagement? What did you learn from them, and then what did you contribute back?
See, when I was young, I was very clear about one thing, that I'm never going to take anybody's autographs. But I would love to meet these people, learn from them, and then make myself capable enough to give autographs. So when you're young, you have these kind of fancies, don't you?
You made it come true.
Yeah, but then when you go through that journey, and then you realize that was silly actually to even say that I want to be giving autographs. But I think
dream big. You gotta dream big.
Dream big, yes. But it's interesting. I remember meeting Sachin Tendulkar the first time when I was traveling with ESPN Star Sports for a contest. I was one of the finalists, and I was doing commentary for India versus Bangladesh cricket test, the cricket test match. That's really how the fascination for cricket started. Then IPL happened, and I started to work with the Royal Challengers Bangalore cricket team. That's how I interacted and rubbed shoulders with perhaps the best cricketers, best businessmen, best Bollywood stars. Learned a lot from them. But I think if you ask me distinctly to pick up 2 or 3 personalities, I'd like to say that Dr. Kalam, he really inspired me. I was rejected 712 times. 712 of my attempts were rejected to meet him, because obviously he's the president of India, right? And I was just a young kid. But then I got to meet him eventually through IIM Bangalore, where I was a visiting faculty, and they wanted to bring him on for one of their alumni meet. And I was instrumental in doing so. So they said, okay, we know that you want to meet him, so why don't you have a chat? And then the first thing happened was I was with him. And I said, sir, I'm inspired by you. I want to do something for you. I want to share this instance because it's very, very humbling. So he said, yeah, so why don't you come and meet me? I said, so I want to come, but your secretary, Mr. Prasad, doesn't give me an appointment. And he called him and said, Mr. Prasad, why don't you call him to the office? And I was there in Delhi, sitting and talking to him. And then suddenly he asked me a question. He says, I want to give you a gift. Is it okay?
Wow.
I mean, you're asking me. I said, of course, yes, it's okay. And guess what he did? He didn't press a bell and call an assistant. He got up himself, went to another room, picked up his CD, The Wings on Fire, and he said, why don't you show this to the young children when you teach them? I was so completely floored with his modesty, with his down-to-earth approach. I'm talking to the President of India. Wow. And I said, okay, this is amazing. The other person I remember who I really enjoyed being with was Dhoni. These were cricket matches. I was doing commentary. He was with me, and he was the captain of the team, obviously. So we were having some fun time together. But I loved the way he's always cool, always composed, just no pressure. I wonder how he can do that. It almost sounds like superhuman being, but he inspired me. I think great leaders should be like him. So I liked him. And the third, of course, is my own mentor and my guru. He was like the man to look out for in India, Mr. Vallabh Bhansali. I'm not sure that he's watching this, but if he is, I was always on a search for my mentor, my guru of this life, the previous life, and the life that I'm going to have after this. And I just heard him once in one of the convention. This was about 3.5 years ago, and I just fell in love. I said, this is the man, a complete personality, investment banker, spiritually oriented, a great family man, on television doing some amazing things. And I just went to him and I said, I want to be like you, talk like you, read the books you've read, live a life that you have lived, And he said, all right, come to Mumbai and meet me. And I did go to meet him. And the moment I saw him, I just surrendered to him. My entire body was on the floor and I just touched his feet. So he said, look, if you want to be like me, I understand, but are you ready for the sacrifices? I said, yes. He says, you'll have to go for a course in Vipassana for 10 days. No talking, no interaction, no communication, no technology, nothing at all. I said, right away. And I took that decision on the spot. That was the moment. I just said, I'm going for it. And because I knew I found my guru and I completely surrendered.
What center did you go to?
I went to Bangalore.
Okay.
The Bangalore Vipassana Center.
I did the one in Igatpuri. That was back in 2004, I think.
Wow.
Amazing experience.
It really is.
Once you go through the first 3 or 4 days of torture, the results are amazing.
Torture, I won't say.
Bliss. Well, for me, the first 4 days were. I'm a talkative person, and being so used to all the stimulus that's around you, whether it's phone, friends, people, work, just disconnecting from that was hard.
But it's a great experience, and all those who are watching, I must tell you this: that till you don't connect with your own self from within, I don't think you're living life at all. You're just scratching the surface.
And I did it again. What was it? 2 years ago, I think, and completely different perspective, completely different me. Right? What I got from it 11 years ago and what I got from it the last time I went was totally different, but still amazingly.
You should do it every year.
Oh, I don't know if I can do that. But
and then after that, every moment of your life, even as you talk to me.
Day, yes.
Absolutely, every moment, every day.
So, talking about meditation, are you spiritual or religious? And how do you interpret it?
So 38 years of my life, I've been a very religious person. I come from the Jain faith, so obviously religion is, you're exposed to religion very early on. So I've done perhaps all sorts of rituals possible. I've been fortunate to spend time with spiritual gurus, or should I say religious gurus. Then I started to explore other religions, Christianity. I was in a Christian school, so Christianity, Islam because of a friend, Hinduism because of my first girlfriend. And all of that was happening, and I think I was leading a good life. I was very, very successful. I mean, what can success mean in terms of being on top of your career, earning a lot of money, having a lot of publicity, fame, power, everything is there, but I was just not happy. I was just not happy, and I didn't know what to do. And then Vallabhji coming into my life, Vipassana, and then the exposure to spirituality, and life is different now. So, but I always give credit to my time spent on understanding various religions, because that created a great foundation, and I could pick up from there on spirituality. So at this moment, if you ask me, am I more a religious person or a spiritual person, you know the answer.
Right.
Spiritual.
Okay. So in terms of bringing that back to the message you want to get back, we were talking right before this in terms of what you want to do. So you've been doing a lot of corporate training, but you were saying like in the coming year you want to change some of that. You want to go back and talk more about success in a different way.
Yeah. No, so it's not in the coming years. It's already started the journey. I'm in the third year already, and I was telling you sometime back now that yes, I used to only talk to the corporate world. Now I also speak to families, but the corporate world piece is interesting. I now go back to all those organizations with whom I've worked in the past, and I distinctly remember what I tell them. First, I go and I meet these CEOs or chairmen. I thank them for having engaged with me earlier, but then the next thing I do is I apologize and I say sorry, and when I say sorry, they're like, sorry for what? I said, sorry for all the injustice that I've done for you. They said, what do you mean by that? You're one of the best that we've ever had. I mean, we enjoy your work and you've delivered success back to back. And I said, yeah, that's what I've done. I've delivered success, I've delivered numbers, but I really have no idea how I've left your people in terms of the quality of their lives, because I was always asking them to chase the target, go on, achieve, all pumped up, get that success. But then when I experienced unhappiness myself, that's when I asked myself a question: what did I do with the others in their lives? So when they hear these kind of conversations in the corporate world, they go a little crazy. So they ask me, what do you want to do now then? So then I tell them, look, I've realized this, that success is important, but happiness is the goal of all goals eventually. And I figured out a way of doing that, that is using science, psychology, and spirituality, and combining these three things to make people happy. The corporate world goes crazy. They say spirituality and happiness. I mean, what do you really want to do here? We talk about productivity, profits, and peak performance. So it's strange. When I'm talking about 3 Ps there, suddenly I talk of a H and a S here, and people are like, what are you talking? But surprisingly, every single person I'm talking to in the corporate world are very happy to hear this.
They're open to accepting this as well.
Yeah, because they all know this, that you can't have people stressed out and trying to chase work-life balance, which is never going to happen.
Right.
So I bring in this concept of work-life happiness. You work, so you want to be happy. You live, you want to be happy. You can't achieve balance. Nobody can, but you can achieve happiness.
Right.
And that's exciting. And on the other part, I've also now started to speak in Hindi, and I'm speaking to large audiences, 1,000, 5,000, 7,000, and I created these concepts called Charan Spash. This is my first big program. If you allow me, I can say a few words on that. I love that program because what I'm doing now is I'm bringing 3 generations of families together. India's always known for this joint family concept. Now the independent families, leave that, but where's the love, where's the joy, where's the happiness, where's the connect? All that is gone. And I just picked up one word, Charan Spash. How do you touch the feet of your elders? That's it. But from there I started to connect. And using the 3 concepts of science, psychology, and spirituality, I try to help people understand there's so much happening when you touch someone. The happy chemicals, the neurons that fire up, the synapses that take place in the body, and then how the body creates the electromagnetic energy, and how that impacts various relationships, and how the in-laws can become, why in-law? I mean, did you sign a contract? No. Exactly. So I challenge that. I say, in love, not in law, in love. And it's amazing when you're on the stage and you can see people happy and they dance and they sing and they cry and they break down and they hug. And I think that was my purpose. This is really what I was born for, to help people get back to the source. Connect and live happily. So now I have this catch line: design your life for happiness and success. Earlier it was, let's get success. So you see, a few words change, but then with that changes the entire philosophy of lives, and you suddenly start living well.
So talking about families, you had a, I would say, difficult childhood, so to speak, right? How have your kids impacted you? How have you raised them? Like, I can sense when parents, the first generation, when they come here, they can be different to their own kids because of what they faced back home. And in a lot of ways now you've seen success. Money is not a struggle for you. How have you raised your kids, and what is their impact on you?
I think I'm a student of life, and I got to realize this, that I want to be a public speaker, so I had a course to attend. Right. I wanted to do business, and therefore I had a course to attend. But when I became a father, before becoming a father, I never did any course on that. Right. And it was all spontaneous. It was all like happening as they go by. You learn and you figure out, and I thought that was pretty crazy. I distinctly remember my younger daughter. I have 2 daughters and 1 wife. So Deepa is my wife, who I so truly love, and my children, the older one is Diya, who is 13, and Diksha, who is 8. When Diksha was I think 5, she wrote a small letter to me. It's not even a letter, she scribbled something. She said, "I love you, Dad, but why are you so angry all the time?"
Oh wow.
And this is before my Vipassana days, when I was extremely successful in my career. That really was a time when I realized that I need to do something about my life. I can't be a person who is a entrepreneur / speaker / businessman at home. At home I need to be a son.
Disconnect from that.
Yeah, I need to be a son, or a good husband, be a dad. And I think that's amazing. Diya always finds me a little boring in terms of my dressing and my hairstyles. So she likes, designing my hair and all of that. But I get to realize this, that if you really want to be with the kids of this generation who are so exposed to technology, information. I don't think you can be a dad. You can't be a strict dad or a strict mom. I think gotta be a friend.
Yeah,
you just
be, cool
be
guy.
with them,
yeah.
be a cool guy. Yeah, but then it's also important that you instill the basic values in them.
Right.
You know, you got to understand your role as a parent, but your approach has to be friendly. And I think that combination is really nice. And my kids always say they're so proud of me, and I'm so proud of my kids as well. Yeah, it's an amazing experience. I live for them.
Great. So, talking about living for others, you have some charitable trust.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that. Talk to us about what you think of philanthropy. You're here for this event tonight for Pratham.
Yeah.
So talk to us about what does giving back mean to you?
See, it really comes from being a Jain. Jains always are. It's a community which has in every Jain's mind. It's been instilled that you can earn as much as you want, but don't have the attachment, and keep giving as much as you can. Yeah. A lot of religion talk, they speak about giving 10% of your charity, but in Jainism it's not about just money, it's about your time, it's about your values, it's about money, it's about whatever that you can.
Right.
Surprisingly, the entire faith itself is built on giving. Our festivals are not about celebrating in the materialistic world, but it's all about dan and tyag. That's really what it's all about. So I think that's been the fundamental for me in terms of charity and giving.
It's kind of instilled in you since
it's just there, it's a part of you.
Kid, yeah.
That's really when I started Ignite India initiative with Dr. Kalam to train and inspire youth. We did tremendously well in the first 2 years, and then we failed. We failed because I had to run my business and I had to run this charity, and suddenly in this charity I had people of all kind of calibers who were reporting to me, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't have the ability. I was
fail as in you weren't able to achieve the results that you set out to?
Absolutely, and in some sense I thought that I let Dr. Kalam down until I met Pratham, and now I see hope for me to take that work to the next level, because what I had promised Dr. Kalam, and he told me that, Rahul, for every 100 kids that you train and inspire one teacher as well. And I knew that one part of my brain was always feeling that sense of dissatisfaction that I haven't done enough. But when I saw Pratham's work, the amazing ability through which they have designed this organization over the last 30 years, scalability with about 7,000 teachers, they impact about 5 million kids at what cost? $25 per child per year. So it really gave me a lot of sense of satisfaction that I was invited to be a part of this fundraiser tonight, and I feel pretty good about it. The other charity which I run is Jain Youth Leadership Forum, and I think I'm very clearly set out on the task there. There's a huge need, not only in Jainism, but I think all faiths in the world. The youth is not getting connected. Why? Because there was a time in our lives where we would practice things because of bhakti, shraddha, or devotion. But today it's not about devotion alone, it's about logic, science. People want to know the reasoning. And I'm glad that I've picked up on the combination which I've been talking about so long, so often, science, psychology, and spirituality, and be able to connect the youth. Surprisingly, as much as the youth come to listen to me, I also have the older generations now coming in thousands of numbers. So I feel privileged and grateful that I can do this.
Which is amazing, right? If you think of it in one way, the more people are connected, the more they seem to be disconnected. They're on social media. I mean, we're all on social media, and we have so many hundreds and thousands of friends.
True.
But we are not really connected in the sense that we should be.
Nitin, it's important that connection are of two kinds, the external world and the inner world. If you're not connected with yourself, you're not connected with anything.
Exactly.
And I think the connection happens not with open eyes, it happens with closed eyes. And I think most people in today's world are not ready to close the eyes in the time when they're awake. And I think that's really the reason for all the miseries that we see in the world today.
Which is very true if you think of it that way. To understand yourself is to understand what your purpose is.
Yeah.
And I would think that also relates back into you being a successful entrepreneur. So what does one need? And I would like to close this with, what do you want to tell other entrepreneurs or other aspiring entrepreneurs? what is the practical and psychological advice you would want to share with them as you've gone through this journey of not only self-realization, but also looking at it and seeing what you can do to be successful in monetary terms, numbers?
True. It's a good question, but a loaded one. So let me take a little time to answer this question. So first things first, for all those who are watching this, I want you to know this, that you can be successful in different ways. You can be a professional, be successful, a sports person, be successful. You can be a teacher. You can be an entrepreneur. So let's get this right. You don't have to be an entrepreneur if you don't want to be one. I know I can be inspiring in this talk and you would want to become an entrepreneur, but don't do that. I think whatever you do it well. But if you really choose the path of entrepreneurship, you must know a few basics. And that is that you're in business for yourself,
Right.
but you're responsible for many, many people. You're responsible for your employees, your customers, and the entire world in some sense. So first things first, risk-taking abilities. If you can't take the risks, if you know this, that you always need the security of your salary, then being an entrepreneur is not for you. But if you know that you can take the risks, then go for it. Now, when you get started, you feel excited because, you know, there's a curve, a business curve, it always takes you up and you feel great. Everybody wants your services because you're new, you're relevant. But it comes down again because then competition sets in and the business goes down, and therefore you need two things after that. You should be ready to change and change rapidly.
Right.
And two is this, that you should be able to innovate. If you're not going to challenge yourself, if you're not going to keep producing new stuff, you're going to get obsolete. No one will ever need you. Then you need to move up into the new cycle of continuous learning. If your mind is not designed for continuous learning, being an entrepreneur or perhaps being in any field is not going to work for you. So you got to keep learning, got to keep challenging yourself, and got to keep yourself relevant all the way through. Now, if you look at my own life, 19 years that I've been around, 175,000 people inspired, 200 organizations, 13 countries, and you say, wow, you're well placed.
Yeah.
I'm displaced every hour.
Right.
You know, I mean, what's the next thing in our own
next?
field?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're doing this interview with me using your mobile phone, and we're going live on Facebook.
Right.
You couldn't have imagined this, let's say, a couple of years back.
No.
And tonight I'm going to be speaking to people in a live audience.
Right.
But will that be relevant 3 years from now? I'm not sure.
No, yeah.
So which is why what I'm doing in my life currently is I've hired services of a very, very dear friend, Arup Kanwal, who's been with O&M earlier. We're trying to challenge everything we've done, rebrand things, bring in technology, try to become a global citizen, take my work to people where they can learn and get inspired with mediums like your smartphones. And we're trying to do that. We also need to understand that as a human being, you've got to continuously keep investing in yourself. I mean, I set aside, as much as I set aside 10% or more money for charity, I set aside 10% or more money for my own personal development.
Yeah.
I talk to the best of coaches in the world on spirituality, on relationships, on business, the best. If they're not the best, I wouldn't talk to them.
Right.
The world's best. And I feel grateful that I have the money to afford them. And I have access now using technology to meet them. If not, otherwise I'd travel 10,000 kilometers like I'm doing. On Monday I'm meeting Mihali who wrote this beautiful book called Flow and Flow of Happiness. So it's about meeting the best, picking up from what they have really learned in their entire life, and then connecting the dots and creating something special. So yeah, as much as I'm advocating that you need to take risks and accept challenges, be innovative, continuous learning, it's just not an advocacy of kind, but it's about me implementing that as well, because if you're not relevant, you'll be out.
Yep. Amazing advice. On that great note, thanks again, Rahul, and wish you all the success for the rework that you're doing and continued growth.
Nitin Bajaj, thank you very much for getting me to talk to you, the industry show. It's been a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.